You silly mutt. Hey, what's happening, y'all? Thanks for joining the Audio Mutt podcast. I'm your host, Matt Jones, and with me today is my co-host and account manager, Brandon Darby, aka the Darbmeister. What's happening, dude?
What up?
So, this is first episode of the podcast, and I thought we could just start with some basic conversations and kind of establish our backstory and kind of talk about how things have been going thus far. So I've been in music since junior high playing trumpet, and then, in high school, Darby here actually introduced me to guitar, and from there into college, kept playing music all through college and played in some bands and got into audio engineering, went to audio school, and have been slowly building Audio Mutt over years, even though it wasn't always called Audio Mutt. And so that's kind of my background. And so, Darbs, like you and I, we both have, we've known each other for 30 freaking years, right? So it's freaking kindergarten. We've been hanging out. And we've both really been into music, especially in high school and stuff. So, I can just say that I'm really grateful that you joined me on this venture to get the studio off the ground. But like, why do you like music so much? And like, what on God's green earth prompted you to take this leap with me? Because it's already been a crazy adventure. I'm sure it's just going to get crazier.
Yeah, so you're a lot bigger than me, so I took this leap because I'm scared of you, and you asked me to. So, no, I'm getting to the age, right, where it's like I kind of wake up one morning and I'm like, dude, I don't have any hobbies. Like, people ask me on whether it's an interview or just meeting somebody for the first time, they ask me, like, hey, what do you do for fun? And I'm like, well, whatever my wife tells me to do, and I mow the grass, and it just kind of hit me. It's like, back in high school, just like so many of us, I was going to be a rock star. I was playing guitar. I got my first recorder, and I was like, dude, I'm going to lay down a track. I'm going to be like Metallica. I'm thinking of band names, and we're going to buy a van and go to California. It's actually me and my friend Brandon, ironically at the time, that that's what we were going to buy a van and go to California and be rock stars. And then life happened, and bills, and you turn 18 and get a wife and kids, and then a decade later it's like I don't play guitar anymore. I don't even listen to music anymore. I don't, like, when I do listen to music, I have to, like, I turn it down because I get it'll give me a headache. I don't jam anymore. If I headbang, like, my left shoulder will freaking act up for like a month. And then you started talking about doing this, and it's kind of like those people that 30, 40, 50 years old and they go back to college, right? It's like, just because you're 30 something or 35, whatever, middle age, doesn't mean that you can't still do it. Right. And this is kind of the grown-up sector of that. It's like, all right, I'm not going to be a rock star, but I could still be part of something. And maybe there's story, that's not a goal. Don't want to be a rock star, but be part of something. And and now when I get asked, hey, what are your hobbies? It's like, well, I do this thing in my basement with my buddy that I've known for 30 years. And the conversation piece is really cool. People are like, really? It's like, yeah, I'm partnered with a a studio. And it's freaking cool.
It is freaking cool. I've been having a blast with what we've been doing thus far, and which we're just getting started. This is all really new, but it's been a thing without being a thing for years. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah.
Dude, I remember. Maybe you want to tell the story. Maybe you just want me to tell this story. But like, I wouldn't be doing this conceivably without your influence. Just being perfectly honest there.
I'm glad I was a positive influence for somebody. That's usually not the conversation.
Well, I mean, it's such a weird story, right? Because like I grew up like most '90s kids, listening to the pop and the boy bands and the country. I mean, my mom, rest her soul, like every weekend it was Brooks and Dunn's greatest hits while we cleaned the house. You know, I'm pretty
Oh.
sure I have those 2 discs memorized, but
Oh, it's playing in my head right now. I really
Right?
wish you hadn't have even said that, because that's gonna be my background noise for the rest of this meeting.
Yep. But then like my buddy Steve, who was in Taekwondo with me, like he burned a CD of Metallica's Black Album. He's like, "Really? That's what you're listening to? Try this." And this was like in like junior high,
It's a
and
big
like
leap.
mind was blown. Right? It was first time hearing anything different. And then it was shortly after that you and I started hanging out a little bit more frequently in high school. And then I was staying over one night, and you're like, and you had that beat up old Squire Strat, and you're just like, all right, dude, try this. You think your trumpet's music. Let me introduce you to some real shit.
I wish I still had that guitar. I lost that guitar. I have no idea where I don't know where it's at. I know that in my stupid young self, I hated the yellow, so I spray painted it blue.
Yeah, so it was like you taught me freaking Sweet Dreams Are Made of These, the Manson version, and just kind of showed me the notes. And then I just, for some reason, like I guess my autistic focus was just like yes, and I just locked in on that, and like you're playing games and doing whatever, I'm still there, ding ding skrbonk bonk de bonk donk, and sounding like shit. And eventually you're like, all right, dude, I'm crashing out. And I remember you waking up the next morning and like your mom had made egg in a nest, and I'm still in there like practicing this lick, and you're going, yo, Jones, you want breakfast? Breakfast? What time is it? And I had been up all freaking night just working on that lick. And like it was over from there. Like as I immediately went home, it's like, all right, Mom, Dad, can I please have a guitar for Christmas?
I think there's a moment where every musician has it, right? Where it goes from like when you're a kid and you're watching these people play music, unless your parents are like into that and they're like get you into that early, where you think I can never do that. That's impossible. These people were born with this special skill. And then you see somebody in person do it and it becomes tangible, right? Because I mean, which my music background changed and started before yours, and I'll get into that in a minute. But I remember the same thing happened to me. I went to my friend Michael's house, and he's got this like burnt orange Jackson with like an inverted neck and everything, freaking awesome. And he's just playing like Pantera, Metallica, and it sounds freaking sick. And I did the same thing. I go home and I'm like, dude, Mom, I've got to have a guitar. And then she's like, well, good luck finding the money. So I don't remember where I found the money, but by God, I found the money. It was like $150. And I went to a pawn store and yeah, got the yellow Strat and like a little janky old little amp. And I get home and I remember thinking like, why doesn't it sound like Michael's? Cause like, no matter what I learned how to play, it wasn't a Jackson. This dude had a $2,000 guitar and $1,000 amp, and it was no comparison to my $150 rig. But yeah, my music mindset, I grew up just like you. My parents are listening to country music, and my dad's obsessed with George Strait and Kenny Chesney, and my first concert was Tim McGraw. And but mine was more, I remember, okay, so like, I think it was 6th grade, 5th or 6th grade. And we're going I'm pretty sure it was 6th grade. And we're going to a field trip. We're on a field trip. And I had this friend, it was 2 friends. One was Evan. His name D. If you're watching this, D, I bet you didn't know that you were such a pivotal part of this, because he's still my friend today. He's the one that gave me a couple of these tattoos that I've got. But anyways, and these dudes, it was him and this guy Jacob. I have no idea where Jacob's at nowadays, for the life of me, I can't remember his last name. But anyways, these guys are listening to like Slipknot, right? Slipknot, ICP, this stuff that in my household, if my mom knew that I listened to this when I was in 6th grade. How old are you in 6th grade? What, like 9, 10, 11? I don't know, whatever, 12? Whatever, 12, 13 years old. And you're listening to the lyrics of Slipknot and ICP, right? Especially ICP. That's what changed me. I didn't even know music like that existed. Right? So that's, it happened later for you, but very young for me. I start getting into Hatebreed, Mudvayne, Slipknot. And these, I'm still the nerdy kid with like the glasses and it just the nerd, right? And these friends of mine, they're these, back in the day, we all, the gothic kids, right? And, they got the trench coats and all that stuff, right? And they're the kids that, get a tattoo at 16. And yeah, they introduced me to real music, right? And like to this day, Corey Taylor, Slipknot, still one of my favorite bands, Mudvayne, etc. And that it started earlier for me, but
I remember all those days. And that's kind of like where this story, like musically, we kind of diverged a little bit, and you kind of went, more into sports, and then you got married, and then you went into the oil field and working, and I was like, I'm going to college, and I joined New Day's Dawn, and first as a sound tech, and then took over for lead guitar, and I'm like we only played a few shows.
Me and my ex-wife went and saw one of them at the Midland, somewhere in Midland.
Yeah, when we did the fair.
Yeah. And it was all of like 20 audience members, but hey, that's more of an audience than I've ever had. I remember that show. It was awesome.
That was a small show. We did a Battle of the Bands out in West Odessa that had a pretty good crowd, and that was a blast. John,
I think I've seen footage of that. Yeah. I'm pretty sure I've seen footage of that.
Dude, that was a cool memory. And okay, this is kind of an aside, but it's a cool memory that John actually has of my mom, because that was one of the few times that they actually got to hang out, because mom and dad went to that one, and John came, and we're up on stage, and I look out in the crowd, and I see John out there, and he's like coaching my mom on throwing up the metal horns.
That sounds like something John would do.
Yeah, and so like him and mom are out there just like, yeah.
See, they can be. I will never be able to convert my dad. If my dad heard anything metal, he would. I don't know what he would do. He's still just country all the way. But you're right. I split off. I got out of it, and I'm doing the oil and gas thing. So yeah, I kind of started listening to country again, and like I would still listen to metal, but as more mainstream stuff. I'm not gonna say Nickelback and stuff like that, but I don't care what anyone says. Nickelback's better than they think that everyone says. Kiss my butt on that. They're not bad. They're not great, but they're not bad. They're not as bad as everyone says.
I'm not even gonna start that debate on this episode.
Edit. No, but yeah, I went that opposite direction, right? So like I just wife, kids, grew up, and then my guitar started collecting dust, right? And which you could put this in here if you want, but my Jackson back here, 17 years old, riding around with my friend Brandon, the guy that this is the guy that we were gonna go to California and be rock stars. He a beautiful vocalist, by the way. I have no idea where he's at nowadays. He's often, I think he did go to California at some point in time. Who knows? But anyways, we're driving and get in a car wreck. He ran a red light, gets slammed. And that Jackson, in hindsight, now that I'm an adult, I know how to adult things. But the insurance adjuster came to the house and he was like, all right, so we can pay for, you know, like physical therapy and all these things because I was jacked up, right? I still have a bad back, I'm pretty sure. But we physical therapy, all this medical stuff, or I can write you a check for $1,000 right now if you sign this paper saying that you'll never sue. Now, in hindsight, I might have a little more money these days if I had done that. But no, I took the $1,000. That's 17 years old. First thing I did, I went down and bought this Jackson, crimson red Jackson down at, I think it was Permian Music, I think. One of the two music stores that we had there in Odessa. And price tag was $999. And I bought that thing and yeah, the rest is history.
Dude, I don't think you've ever told me that story.
You didn't know where I got the Jackson from?
It was just.
How do you not know that? How do you not? No, you knew that.
I'm telling you, dude, that's the first time I've ever heard that story about you got the money from a wreck.
Oh, dude, I had scrapes all over. I was like from head to toe, man. I was pretty jacked up. I didn't go to the hospital. Yeah, and I remember my mom telling me, like, she pulls me to the side and she's like, Brandon, are you sure that you don't want to go to the doctor? I don't want to go to the doctor. Give me the money. And yeah, I signed the paperwork, got the money. And that's why the Jackson's so important to me. Cause like, I'll never get rid of that Jackson. Just for that. I mean, yeah, I literally almost died in that wreck. And I essentially sold my soul for the Jackson. The insurance claim money from a wreck. But yeah, I don't know how you didn't know that.
Yeah, well, and the Jackson itself has like an interesting story where like even like beyond that, because where my experience with the Jackson comes in is where you had it and it had the EMG-HZs in it, and you're just like, man, I want the 8185s. And I was like, man, I do too. And so I saved up and bought the 8185s and put them in my SG. Which, like, we tried to do that. I remember us both with the soldering iron trying to make that work. Like, crap, I can't figure this out. It's not working. Everything's supposed to be right. And so then I had to take it to a tech to get those switched out. And then I started jamming on, like, this sounds like crap. Why would I do this? Why did I ruin my SG? And so then we pulled those out, put the 8185s in your Jackson, and then put the stock pickups back in the SG, which now that has the P rails in it. And now my electronic skills have greatly improved, and I can do all that myself. But yeah, like that was a whole adventure at the time.
I mean, I still can't do that stuff, but but the 8185s sound great in the Jackson. They were made for a Jackson.
Heck yeah, they do.
As we all know, the Jackson only has one purpose in life. It has one tone. It's only good for one tone.
Dude, I remember there was one time I had borrowed the Jackson and had played it at a band rehearsal at New Day's Dawn. And then, like, the next gig we had, it was like a house party in, like, someone's big old metal building. And Jason's like, dude, can you borrow the Jackson again?
I thought you borrowed it for church. Were you playing at church at some point or something? And I was thinking, you sure you want to take a Jackson into church? It'll burst into flames. Yep. Jackson's never that. My son is named after the Jackson. Jackson Darby, man. Right there. Don't tell my wife, which is probably watching this right now. Edit. I'm kidding.
Cut.
And he has zero interest in music. I mean, he listens to music and I don't know, Paw Patrol or something. Jesus. I can't get him into the... One day, I'll get him.
It can change at any point, as
I know.
We have learned.
My kids and your upcoming kid is going a completely different experience.
Dude, it's going to be interesting seeing little Patrick's development with that. I mean, just having the resources, if he did choose to pursue or embrace any aspect of what we're...
I think most kids want something to do. If they see dad doing something cool, then they're involved. right? Kinsley has a guitar now. She got a guitar for Christmas because she knows that dad plays guitar, and she's like, cool. But then Jackson's like, no, where's my iPad? I don't care. But he sees dad play games, and there you go.
You look at the different music that's available today, like instantly, and where all that lies in the cultural zeitgeist. And like, our kids are going to have access to music in a way that we never did. And
oh yeah, we had to go buy the tape. I remember when CDs came out. I mean, we're not old, but we're old enough.
the subject of this video is just changed to Darby and Matt date themselves horribly for oh man. But
we're cutting it open and reading the rings. It's like, yeah, you got the cassette tape ring right here. Makes you about 35.
But it's just interesting, and it's scary a little bit, and we can dive more into this at another time, and how that relates to the actual music industry and what we're doing here at Audio Mutt. Some of that can be a little scary because the funds available for music are shifting drastically. But then at the same time, it's like, how cool would it have been if, our parents could have been, well, I want my kiddo to be exposed to more jazz. And so they start pulling up some jazz records, right? And how that could have affected our development musically. But that's like that's a whole other can of worms to dive into that. But, going back to kind of where we were originally headed.
What was this episode supposed to be about? I don't know.
Well, and I mean, just right now we're talking about our musical history and like what brought us to this point where we're even looking at doing this sort of stuff. And, from where you went into the working world, I dove headfirst into the music world and was just, this is what I want to do. And like, went to audio school, got Pro Tools certified, which after the crap Avid's been pulling lately, I'm not sure
Don't
if I
start.
regret that yet.
You already made that video.
That's a fair point.
Link in bio.
Yeah. Link in the description below. Go check it out. It's a 3-video series. But and it's like, this project has been in the back of my mind. And like, when I first got out of audio school, I tried to start a company that was Jones and Media Services. And like, the whole thing there was like, I was trying to record. I liked recording orchestras and band and choir and stuff, and so I was trying to get into that realm, which is great, until you realize that concert season is once a year, and you can only fit so many clients in, and schools can't afford for you to charge them enough that you can make a living out of the couple months of work you get in that realm.
I'm just going to go ahead and throw it out there, and don't edit this out because I welcome the hate, but we have to admit that rock and roll is a little bit more fun than like the orchestra stuff, right? Like, come on now.
It can be.
The clientele base. It's a different world.
It is a different world, but it's interesting because like, if you've been around both groups, like, there are good things and bad things to behind the scenes to working with each. And that's like, on the surface, rock and roll looks a lot more fun.
It's a little bit more chaotic though.
Yeah.
That's another episode though, remember?
Yeah. It's a lot a bit more chaotic, except okay, so there's stories, and I don't know if I've told you this before, but like, and it might have been the gig that you were helping me with, where we were recording a university band, and it's getting set up, which this was a crazy gig, right? Because it was like one day, and the band was performing, the symphonic orchestra was performing, and then the choir was performing, and like, we were recording all of it. It was like a full day of tracking. and it was a live show, and
Wow.
they had a guest soloist who was a big name in the orchestras of that area, and like the front of house tech wanted to put a spot mic just for her because she's a soloist, right? And she was like, no, no spot mic. I don't need a spot mic. I play perfectly, and like going kind of diva on the whole thing. And he's like, well, it's just like, it's just to put it there. Like I might mix it in a little bit, might not even use it. I just want to have it just in case. And she gets kind of attitudey and is like, okay. And so then I help him get the spot mic set up. And the way I've got my microphones separate usually, because in those kind of environments, like I never know, are they going to have a PA system? If they have, and especially if you're working with like public school, they may have a PA system and no one in the entire district may even know how to operate it.
Right.
Like they get these things set up, and like usually they'll have a technician who like teaches the theater or band or choir teacher the basics of how to operate it, and then they'll like teach some of the kids, and then from then on like the kids will just pass on the knowledge to whoever's in the group after them.
Like
It's
grandma's
really-
recipe, man.
Yeah, it's a weird thing to actually see play out. But luckily it was a university, so they actually would hire front of house staff who knew how to operate all their equipment. And so with that, I was able to tie in to their PA system. And so then front of house was able to get access to my mics, and then I was able to get access to the house mics because they had a Decatree system up in the rafters. So like that was pretty cool. And I was like, yeah, dude, the spot mic, because then I can use it at the recording. Well, this lady was not happy about it, and like we started doing the rehearsal part of it, getting prepped and tuning up, and she's like, I can hear myself out of the PA. That is unacceptable. I want this mic away. And like the front of house technician comes over there and goes, okay, removes the mic. She's throwing a ever-loving fit. And like he just kind of, as he's walking by me, goes, dude, that channel was muted. Whole freaking time. Like it. So like that's something that you do like still deal with even in the big university or school band things. Like, and I've got more stories that I won't go into right now that are just diva stuff.
Yeah.
There's divas everywhere. But yeah, it's just interesting. You think about that happening more in rock and roll, right? But it happens everywhere. So I guess something else that I kind of wanted to touch on is here recently. So like I went to, we moved out here to North Texas. The business wasn't doing that well because I was operating off that old system where I was like trying to do school bands, and it wasn't paying rent. So I ended up taking a day job and using that to pay for equipment and get everything set up. And then here recently I was like, all right, it's time to take the leap. And so we launched the Audio Mutt website, got everything up and running, and then I reached out to you and was like, okay, dude, I'm doing this. It is time. And
It is time.
it has begun. And here we go.
Go. Check the copyright on that.
It's all right. I'm not using the actual clip. We're fine. It's a cover. In this episode, we cover Heath Ledger's Joker. How does that work? I don't know.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so
But yeah, and I was like, and I don't know. I don't think you might not remember much of that actual conversation, but
I don't remember the exact verbiage. I don't remember the phone call.
it was, I think we were just kind of talking about, the changes that were happening here, and with me leaving that day job, which was not a good fit for me. We'll keep that political. And like,
Yeah. Yeah.
uh,
Just leave that one there.
just leave that as it is. But then moving over to this and trying to work as a freelancer and independently, and like, we were just kind of talking about the struggles that I was having, and I'm going, it's lonely. It is. It's
Yeah.
lonely, and it's hard to keep motivation when it's just you in a room and you're trying to handle everything. You're trying to handle the social media presence, because if you're wanting to drum up business nowadays, you need a social media presence, maintaining the website, trying to get clients, working on original content, because that's something else I wanted to do, was to not just be a studio, but to also be a content creator of sorts, and to put good quality stuff out there, and to talk about issues that maybe not a lot of people want to talk about. And like, I had all these dreams and goals, and like, trying to handle it all just by myself was stressful, and it left me like a lot of times sitting here trying to find motivation and prioritize. And that's when I was like, would you maybe want to help?
You're calling up Amber. Hey, can Brandon come and play?
Yeah.
No, you're jogging my memory a little bit now. I kind of remember. I think part of the conversation was that you're the engineer, you're the brains, right? And then I've always been the social guy, right? Like, I'm a salesman. That's what I do for a living. I sell things. I've done it for years. And I think that's where the conversation kind of went in that place too. It's like, hey, we're opposites, skill level wise, or whatever the case, right? So I think part of it came from that. It was like, I need like a PR guy. I need somebody that can talk to people and such, which I don't remember. I guess it started before I switched roles at my job, because I was working 16 hours a day outside in the heat and clamoring around and all that crap, and then so I just didn't have any time, and we were meeting on Sundays, and then I guess it started, but then then I switched roles, and now I have a lot more free time, luckily, so I'm able to be here more.
Yeah. Well, you're absolutely right. Like, our personality types are very different. I am very technically minded, I don't know how much of that is being on the spectrum, how much of it is just me being me.
I think I don't know either, but Amber's constantly like she's like, how are y'all friends? He is so much better than you. Like, Matt is such a nice guy, and you're an asshole.
I don't know about any of that.
You're definitely nicer than me. I think it's a mannerism. She's like, he has such nice manners, and I'm the one that's like, I don't care.
See, I think you got something there with where it's like the mannerisms, right? Because like, you joke about being an asshole, but like, you're also the guy that I know, if I break down on the side of the road at 2 a.m, like, I can call you and you're going to give me shit for it. You will come help, but you will gripe the entire time, and I will never hear the end of it.
I'd be griping the whole way, and I'd already be in the truck. You wouldn't even know I'd left already. I'd be already on the way.
We're just different, bro. Like, I know I can trust you implicitly, and that you will always have my back, because you're just that kind of guy, which is also one of the reasons why I wanted to bring you on board, man. Like, my opinions on behaving ethically and morally, and doing what's right, and treating clients right, and you know how strongly I feel about doing the right thing because it's the right thing to do. And there's not a whole lot of people on this planet that I would trust to help me fulfill that vision, if that makes sense.
I love you too, man.
But yeah, and that was, I mean, that's the genesis of this, of how, we're getting this off the ground, rocking and rolling, having these conversations, how it all relates back, not yes to what we're doing here at Audio Mutt, but how what we're doing here at Audio Mutt also relates to what's happening out in the world. I think there's a lot of interaction there that bears exploring.
I agree.
But then there's another recent milestone. You actually managed to bring in the first client that came in after you joined the team. So I'd be curious to hear a little bit more about how that went down.
Oh, David. And you know he's going to be watching this.
It's all right. David's cool. It was cool.
Yeah, guy. We're going to have to bring him on this show. He's such a cool dude. But anyways, I don't know why it didn't dawn on me sooner, right? It's literally, I'll pull this out here, right? It's literally on the card, right? Account manager, right? That means that one of my jobs is to find clientele. And I had known David since probably 2018, so 3-4 years now. And I actually was kind of his boss. I wasn't his boss. I was one of his trainers. He came to work where I was working. I'm not going to even get into that. But and I was a regional trainer, and I trained him. And instantly, you get to talking to these guys, these new hires or whatever the case, and you get to learn about them. And I learned pretty quick that he was into music. But there again, this was the point. This was long before... or not long before, but a couple years before I got back into it. Like at this time, I was 100% career driven. My career was life, because I was working from 3:00 in the morning till 10:00 at night. There was no room for anything else. But then, me and David went our separate ways. I went off and started working somewhere else. He went off and started working somewhere else. But we maintained a relationship because he's just such a cool dude. But it never really dawned on me. And me and you are meeting weekend after weekend after weekend, and we're talking about it like, hey, let's get somebody in the studio, whatever. And then, it just kind of dawned on me and say, hey, I got this dude that has a pretty good voice, and he jams out and stuff. I didn't know much about, I didn't talk to him in depth about it, but I knew that he had posted videos on Facebook and stuff like that. I knew, he is kind of like a garage band kind of guy, and he was recording music. And I knew it sounded pretty good. So I gave him a call, or I asked you about it and gave him a call, and was like, hey Dave, you wanna hang out and put stuff out of you into a microphone? And he was like, yeah, man, because that's just how David is. I could call David right now and be like, hey dude, you wanna go skydiving next Sunday? And he'd be like, yeah, cool. When are we gonna be there? It's one of his jokes. He'll call and he'll be like, hey man, you wanna go bowling? That's just how David is. It's like, sure. Unfortunately, I missed out on the drum tracking, which, you could dive into that if you want, but I know I got to miss out on that part, but I got to catch the vast majority of the rest of it. I think I have a tumor now because of it. I still can't. My brain is still like, it's like, that's not how music's made. No. Because just like anyone else, it's like it's this notion that bands just, they go into the box, you see in the movies, they go into this glass box and they just play a song and then they record it. And then, ta-da, music, and that's it. And then, then you get into movies like Bohemian Rhapsody and you're like, what? No, that's, I will tell anyone watching this, the scene where multiple scenes that take place where they're actually recording Bohemian Rhapsody is more accurate to what happened in this basement that night. It's like, hey dude, well, what if we throw a bowling ball at the mic? Wouldn't that sound cool? And it's like, yeah, sure, why not? Let's, whatever. And the tireder you get, and it is work. It is, Never knew.
Yeah.
Never knew. No idea. I had no idea that. I mean, I wasn't naive. I was like, all right, I know it's a lot of. I mean, yeah, I knew it's a lot of work. I wasn't naive to it. I just was naive to just the detail and just how. I mean, and it's not what people think it is. There will be like a 3-second little guitar part that you record 17 times. It's like, no, little flat, no, little sharp, no, why don't we try this note or that note? Oh, why don't we do it here in this different tuning? Oh, why don't we try it on a different guitar? Hey, let's move the mic and do it this way. Hey, why don't you use this finger instead of that? And then all these little things for like 3 seconds of the song, you're like, what? Like, how does that matter? And then you hear the end result. And that's where the magic is. It's like, holy crap.
Yep.
And when you get to be a part of that, when you get to see it and be part of it firsthand, that's where it's and then you hear the end result. You're like, holy, I remember that. I hear it now. You hear music in a completely different way. And you're listening to the end result and you hear it and you're like, holy crap. Like, I remember that one little note right there. And if it wasn't for that note, I wouldn't get that tingle on the back of my neck because of that one little thing. And it's the creative process that goes behind it is insane.
Yep. Well, and it's cool for me, like, hearing you talk about that, because, like, I can remember when I first had that moment in the studio and working through stuff, and it was like it was a big difference between when I was starting and learning, trying to teach myself and using like the Boss BR900 CD that I had to record, and then actually going to audio school and having a band in the studio and actually like you're talking about, going through that process. It's a very different experience, and like it like you're saying, it opens your mind to a lot of the reality of what goes into this. And that's not to say that, what you're talking about with the band going into a big box studio, everyone's in an ISO room, and plays together and lays it down and there's your song. Like, that still happens.
Right.
But like, I feel like it's happening less and less, and so much, because I feel like before, you didn't get to use recording as a songwriting process unless you were like signed to a label and were a big deal. Because, I mean, paying for
it's expensive.
Yeah, it's crazy expensive. Crazy expensive. And now these tools have become so affordable that you can use recording as part of the songwriting process, which we'll have to get this straight from Dave's mouth, but from the conversations we had, it seemed like he really enjoyed.
Yeah, it definitely liked it. And I don't think we necessarily, I don't know if that was the plan or what. None of us, we didn't go into the first session with a plan, or the first and only session for the song, but we didn't really have a plan. It's like, hey, there's some dudes that, we have the equipment, we have the talent. Let's put ourselves into the same room and just kind of see what happens. We had a plan, as in, okay, this is a song. David he had written the song and tracked it or recorded it himself, but like with a cell phone or whatever the case, right? And that was it. So we knew we were going to do some version of that, but it turned into, like I said, the closest I can explain it is like Bohemian Rhapsody scene in the movie, right? It's like just this crazy thing. It was cool though. It was very organic, and just it was like hanging out, and it's like, hey, why don't we try this, or why don't we try that? Which, I mean, I just kind of sat there and watched. But hey, edit that out. That sounds creepy. No, I'm fine. I'm kidding. Oh.
No, you're talking about we didn't really. I will admit I did have a little bit of a plan. And
That's your nature. Of course you had a plan.
well, it's weird because we didn't know. So it wasn't just David; it was his friend Jake, right? Jake's
Right.
phenomenal musician. It was a pleasure working with both of them. But we had no idea what he was actually going to play. Dave, when he was here working on drums, we did a little bit of acoustic guitar and came up with the idea of using the ukulele, which turned out to be brilliant. And played a little bit with what might be some cool bass lines. But it was like after listening to his demo, and this is where I kind of got to put on my producer hat, and that's where I was like, okay, and this is what I have to do for a session, especially if I have a demo to go off of, where I'm going, okay, so what do I think would sound good here? And so part of my plan was to have the 335 going through the Vox as a rhythm guitar track, and that to be hard panned one side, and then to have another guitar. I didn't know which guitar yet, which I think we ended up using David's Telecaster on
It was
the other side.
wasn't that like the light bulb moment? It was like, and it sounded weird at first, or you thought it would sound weird. He was like, hey, why don't we try this?
Yeah.
When that, yeah, or no. Oh, whatever the case. I think it was his guitar through the
orange. It was through the orange.
The orange. That was the weird one, because we
Yeah.
were like, dude, that's a weird combo. And then as soon as he like hit the first note, we were all like,
Yeah, because we had.
wait a minute.
Yeah, we had the Marshall DSL 40 CR, which is a nice tube amp. We had the Vox AC15, nice tube amp. And then we put the Telecaster through the little orange Crush solid state.
Which shouldn't work for what we were doing.
But it sounded great. And then, like, I had an idea with the lead guitar, because I knew Jake and Dave were going to do 2 separate lead guitar tracks. And so going into the session, I was like, I think it would sound really cool if we had a Strat tone, single coil, kind of clean, bright, chimey, as one lead guitar version, and then had a Telecaster with some more grit on it, some more drive, and like a dirty telly kind of sound. And then like we could do some cool layering. We could have some coming in and outs where it's like obviously tonally 2 different guitars, 2 different guitarists. And so like I went into the session with that kind of already in my head. And like, is that good or is that bad? I don't know. I think it just kind of depends on the song. Because sometimes it's good.
It worked.
Yeah. Sometimes
Whatever we did worked.
Exactly what you're talking about works really well, where it's like, okay, we're just going to come into this with blinders on, and what happens, and let the creative process flow. Then there's other times where I think it's like, okay, having more of a plan of this is what I think is going to sound good here, can get you a really good result too. So it really comes down to the session. It comes down to the musicians too. Some musicians like to sit and they work out all the details of their song, all the different parts, all the little ear candies ahead of time before they go into the studio, because hey, we're paying for studio time.
It's more efficient.
We need to make this as efficient as possible.
Right.
And then that's cool because that actually frees you up a little bit more time in the studio if everything else works really efficiently to come up with those weird ideas as like an add-on.
Right.
But then there's other times when it's like, okay, I've written this song, I've got the bones written, and now I need help fleshing it out. And I think that kind of that changes our role as engineers and into more of like a producer role, which I'm happy to take on. I mean, it turned out well with David's track.
Yeah, you're not telling I gotta backtrack just for a sec. You're not telling the best part of that story. You talk about improv, right? And how good Jake is. So all of us, you, me, David, everyone was under the impression. So you and David had previously recorded the drums and the acoustic, and then, you know, Jake's role was bass, which that's not, it wasn't just lead, it was bass. And the idea was we're gonna send this to Jake, the original that David had recorded and what you and David had done, and then he's going to co-write and write a lead part, unbeknownst to all of us until after Jake had never received these tracks. Like, literally, Jake, it was like, hey dude, we're making a song, and Jake's like, cool. And it shows up, and then you know, we're playing, you know, all right, man, here it goes, and here's the part, and he's like, cool, and it sounds freaking awesome. And then after the fact, it's like, you know, David, I don't remember what it was, but David said something about, he referred back to the original. He's like, oh, well, you know that one part where it does this, and he's like, nah, man, I never listened to it. It's like, what? No, we're like, what? No, there's no, that's not how this. What do you mean you didn't listen to? You're just literally just pulling this crap out of here.
Yeah.
What? No.
Super impressive. And yeah, I remember that. So the deal was that I had shared with Jake the drums and acoustic guitar thing that me and Dave had put together, right? Thinking that David had shared with Jake his demo version, because I mean they live in the same town, and David thought that he had sent his original demo version to the guys too. But apparently he had shared it with a different email address for Jake, and so Jake never actually got the original demo. So all he had to go off of was the drums and the acoustic guitar and that little ukulele thing. And off of that, in his head, built out the chord structure and analyzed the beat counts and went, okay, if I had to guess, I'm going to say the guitar solo starts here and ends here. So I'm going to write, they told me I need to, you know, Dave told me he wants me to do lead guitar, so I need to write a solo for this section.
I don't know how I did it. That's so crazy.
Yeah, I mean, the dude's good.
That's the thing that I got to see firsthand that no one else, like when you hear a song, there's so much of that in the music industry and on songs. And I've heard stories, you know, they get it all laid out. Actually, I was just listening to Octane or Turbo, one of them, on Sirius. I think it was yesterday. And I don't want to quote it exactly. I think it was Rage Against the Machine, I think. And they were talking about, and it's one of their most famous songs, and the chorus, the part everyone knows. You hear the chorus and you're like, yes, I know this. And they had tracked it and laid it. It was back in '99 because they were talking about, they were literally tracking the last song, the main song on the album, like hours before going to Woodstock '99, right? And so, and they're all tired and they're beat and they're done. They've been in the studio for hours, and they still have to play Woodstock '99, which, you know, is a pretty small show, right? So, you know, no big deal, just Woodstock. And it was all done, and God, I don't remember which bandmate it was. I don't remember which one it was, the one that was on the radio doing the interview, but everyone liked it. The managers and the studio staff and the band, everyone was happy. They're like, this is great. And the one guy, he didn't like the chorus. He didn't like the lyrics. And he was like, man, it just doesn't feel right. And they're all like, dude, it's great. Let's leave it. Let's go. We've got a show to play. We're going to play this song in like 3 hours. Long story short, they end up retracking it with the lyric that he came up with. And boom, one of the most famous Rage Against the Machine songs of all time. And that's how the studio setting is. And that's how, you know, David's and Jake's song could be, you know, a great lead solo that just, and it was all improv. Just kind of bam, it just kind of happened. And I don't know, I just seeing that firsthand myself, just, I don't know. I'm telling you, man, the tumor's growing.
Yeah, was it? You keep telling every time we have a meeting or we work on something, you're just like, ruin it.
You
for
ruined
me,
the music
Jones.
for me. Yep. You literally ruined music for me because now I'm listening to it and I'm like, And I break it down completely different.
Which, I don't know, I still like the metaphor, and it's weird, my audio teachers used to use this metaphor that, like, it's like cooking. And they would say it's, you know, making a stew, and like this, your microphones are your ingredients, and I'm not going to go deep into that metaphor, but like when it comes to a lot of the stuff that you start learning about the ins and outs and it changes how you view it, it's like if you start learning about cooking and you learn what makes a good dish, then no matter what restaurant you go to, you're going to be tasting it going, I think they use this, and this, and I think they...
Right.
And it's like, does it enhance or diminish your enjoyment of the meal? For some people, they would see that as being less fun. For the rest of us, we see it as being more fun.
I think it makes it more fun. I do. I think having seen the behind the scenes, I compare it to like watching a movie, right? If you ever... everyone's watched movies or TV shows or whatever the case, right? We've all watched TV. And then if you ever had the opportunity to step behind the scenes and see it, I don't know. Does it ruin it or enhance it? I think it's a personal question. In my case, I feel like it did enhance it. I mean, I hear music in a different way, but in a better way. So, sure. I mean, I think a movie would ruin it. You know, you're just seeing Tom Cruise like on a green screen with like, it's like, oh no, I thought he did his own stunts. But no, music in the music realm, definitely.
Well, even with video, like I didn't have to take a lot of video classes, but I had to take a few, right? So I had to take a class on cinematography, videography, you know, manning a camera, and I had to take a class on video editing. And it was interesting, as part of the videography class, our teacher made us watch through films and TV shows and look for continuity errors, because that was one of his big things that he loved to do. So like all of us got trained on looking for weird crap in movies.
That shouldn't be there.
Yeah.
It's like, what is it? Oh man, what is that one? It's like in Gladiator, there's like a plane that flies over. It's like, oh yeah, we're in like the 13th century and here goes an airplane.
So from a technical standpoint, I'd be curious to hear some of your thoughts on, you know, I know you're still learning a lot of the audio engineering stuff, right? We've been training on that, but it's not something that you've dove into really heavily. So as we went through the session, was there anything like technically that you thought was particularly interesting? I mean, when it could be something, I don't know, like the fact that we were moving microphones like millimeters and like changing directions they were pointing to get specific sounds, or, you know, the differences. Like, we all know that different guitars sound different, but like we were getting into some pretty minute things, like a Strat versus a Tele, you know, two single coil guitars, and then, or like the freaking recording backup vocals, and then like, did you jump on the backup vocals, or was it just me that got up there and decided to have a go at it?
No, I never jumped on backup vocals. I was jump shot. I'm just kidding. You gotta throw that in there. It'll be funny. No, so I didn't jump into backup vocals because, I mean, mostly, number one, I'm not a vocalist, at least not these days. But by the time we got into backup vocals for real, we had been going, 12 hours. Yeah. More. Because we started, well, really, y'all started about 10 o'clock in the morning, roughly. We'll say noon. We started at like noon, and we went till 2 o'clock in the morning, at least. And we didn't really start doing, like, we were diving into vocals at, like, I don't know, 10, 11, 12 o'clock. And by then I was so tired. I didn't, like, part of me, I was like, you know what? I could be part of a song, but nah. I just, I was so tired. I will say I kind of regret it, because it's like, you're listening back, it's like, it would have been cool to be able to be like, hey, you hear that weird little low part there? Yeah, that's me. Boom. I'm a rock star. But I missed out on it. Won't happen again. Definitely be diving in there on the next one. But yeah, no, and yeah, vocally too. I don't know. It's also weird and different from what I anticipated it being like. And there again, I wasn't naive to it as to how the process works, but just being there firsthand was it was. And it was, I'll say this, and I don't want to deter any, especially young artists that are in where we were 15 years ago today, in high school or younger or whatever, getting into this. And if they happen to stumble across this video, I don't want to deter them from it, but it's work, right? It was fun. I would say it's the epitome of doing a job that you enjoy, because it is fun, but it was work. It got to a point, we're tracking a guitar for the 10th time. And, and there again, like you said, we're trying a different type of mic, whether it's, what is it? You call this one a pencil condenser, right? Mm-hmm. Okay. So a pencil condenser versus, what is a diaphragm?
Large diaphragm condenser.
Okay. So yeah.
Dynamic mic.
Yeah, case in point, and you were the kind, you know what you're it's A35 6.0 -L and blah blah blah. I don't. I can remember a pencil condenser though, just turning all the little knobs and trying to adjust it just to find the sweet spot and changing the sound a little bit. That is one part that I was naive to, because I've seen you work Pro Tools and you've shown me so much of how to do that. I was under the impression that it was tweaking a knob or something in post, right? Like, oh, I could fix that later or whatever. And there again, going back to David as a client, he was so adamant on everything having an organic feel that came into it. He didn't want a bunch of post-production stuff happening. He wanted it to, he wanted to tweak the mics and change amps and guitars, and he wanted that sound that he wanted. Which, another interesting part that really surprised me, still surprises me now that I think about it, is David, when we first started talking to him about being a potential client and recording a song, he was so adamant on a certain sound. He was like, all right, I want this to be super just deep. And, he had like a mindset of, kind of not hard-headed about it, but he had an idea and that's what he wanted to do. But when we get into the, when we step into the Darbmeister dome or whatever you want to call it down here, and we start recording and we start coming up with ideas. Hey, let's make this a little cleaner and crisper and try this and try that. And let's pan these differently. And he became way more open-minded. And I think the end result was something that was 10 times better than any of us had anticipated, including him. Things like the ukulele, the difference between, and there again, me, prior to that, if I had listened to his original version versus what we produced and you engineered, I would have heard the difference in quality, but I wouldn't have heard the little nuances, the little differences as much. And it made a huge difference, and especially, having been there.
A lot of what you're talking about to me is like an engineer mindset versus a musician mindset. So, and a good engineer is going to have the experience to know when this can be adjusted with an EQ curve in the box later, or or this is going to be better served by adjusting a mic. And an experienced engineer is going to be able to know where to move the mic. You know, it might take a few minutes of trying some different things of like, no, okay, that doesn't really work the way I thought it would. But that's the role of an engineer, is to have that experience that maybe a casual musician may or might not, you know, depending on how much they've dove into that and sculpting their tone. But an engineer is also going to be looking at things from the grand scope, right? Because like you're talking about with Dave and his idea for how the tone of the song would be, you know, he's approaching that the way most guitarists would. And and this is what he said, I like a beefy guitar tone.
Right.
Most of us like a beefy guitar tone. Like if it sounds thin and wimpy when I'm playing, it doesn't have the same oomph, and I don't play as well. Like that's, and so, but if you approach a recording like that, basically you're putting that's a lot of low mid information, and frequencies stack up against each other, and that can cause masking. So what you end up with, if you record each instrument with that mindset of this is the tone I like, right? Everything's going to have tons of low mids. Nothing's going to be singing really in the top end, and you're going to lose clarity. It's going to sound muddy. And if you're a musician watching this, it's good to learn about all these things and then start looking at not just the musical composition itself, but the composition of the recording at a broad level sonically. And to be able to, and this is where you can either dive into this and learn, or you can say, okay, this is getting a little bit too deep. I need to focus on doing what I do in playing music. And that's where you find an engineer, and you holler at us over here at Audio Mutt, because that's the
Thank God for
role.
engineers.
Right.
I'm just over here like my head's gonna explode just on that alone.
Well,
it's so much. The way you think is completely different than a normal person. You're a freaking robot, man. In the best way.
Yeah, let's clarify. I mean that's a good thing.
Yes, but you're. Oh man, what is the movie, man? Robin Williams, rest his soul, man. Bicentennial Man. You're like the robot with a heart. Oh. So in the best way, you're the best type of engineer and the best type of artist all rolled into one, which is the huge part of the uniqueness of Audio Mutt. And without that, it wouldn't be the same experience.
No, I will take that as a compliment, but yeah, it's just a different way of looking at it, and you know, that's why engineers, it is work. That's why engineers don't do this for free.
Yeah.
But, you know, it just takes a different mindset, and shifting from musical composition where you're thinking about chord structure, you're thinking about melodic lines, you're thinking about rhythmic devices, to, okay, sonically, how do we sculpt this and make sure that, excuse me, the low end is clean and clear, that you can hear the kick drum, but at the same time you can hear the bass guitar, and you know, how's that going to relate to, you're thinking about how everything relates to everything else, because you know, it's a mix, so everything is a mishmash, it's wibbly wobbly, timey wimey. That's just for any of you Doctor Who fans out there.
Okay. There's a reference there. I missed it. Okay.
Yeah. Somebody asked, it was David Tennant's doctor, and like somebody asked him how time travel even works, and he's like, it's just, time's really just a mishmash of wibbly wobbly, timey wimey. It was a brilliant moment. Anyway, so yeah, you're looking at that, and that's where you get a great product when you have an engineer mind and a musical mind working together. I think you get the best products when you have those two types who can really, you know, kind of like we were talking about us working together, where you're more social, I'm more technical. Like, those two personality types and those two mindsets, that's what you need to make a good record. And yeah, and it's things like thinking about weird crap, like the ukulele, right? I remember, so Dave and I got through with the drums, and we came in here and we were kind of finalizing some things, and we got the drums just exactly like we wanted. And then we laid down acoustic guitar and kind of dialed that in how we wanted. And we're just kind of talking about, okay, what else? And that's it. Okay, and we were talking about how the next session would play out. And I was saying, okay, we're going to need time for bass and vocals. We're going to need time for rhythm and lead guitar. And then we're going to need some time to record some ear candy. And he's going, ear candy? Which I think you had the same reaction the first time I dropped that term of like, what? Why are we putting Tootsie Rolls in our song? What?
I hate Tootsie Rolls.
Well, you're candy of choice, but anyway.
Skittles.
There you go. Song Skittles.
I'm not being paid, by the way, by Skittles. Just throwing that in there.
Well, good disclaimer there. But so I was telling him about, the whole ear candy thing, and I said, like, listen to some of your favorite songs and listen for the weird things that only happen like once or twice, right? And you'd be surprised, like the first verse will be kind of stripped down, and the chorus will open things up, and it'll come down to the second verse, and it'll drop down from the chorus, but then there's going to be like some different things tonally that, maybe where there wasn't a synth in the first verse, there's going to be a synth in the second verse. And then they're going to open up into the second chorus, and it's going to be the same structurally as the first chorus, but now there's going to be bells that are just going to bing, ding, 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 like randomly, right? And it's something where if you're not specifically listening for it, you might not even notice it. It might be really down low in the mix. But if those things were to be taken out, the song would lose its movement. It would not have the same momentum, not have the same feeling, not have the same energy. And so that's where we started looking at, okay, well, what can we do in this song to create some ear candy, to make one thing sound a little different from the same, where it existed previous, and things that can draw the listener's ear and make things sound unique. And we're just throwing around ideas, and I'm like, well, I got that ukulele up there. I don't know. And so yeah, we got that down, and he started like figuring out some chords, and we tried some different things, and you're
not telling the full story, man, because a little birdie told me it took like an hour to get that thing in tune.
That's true. That is very true.
If we're going to talk about the studio experience, we got to all the things.
Tuning.
Oh, by the way, tuning. God. A 12-hour recording session, if you took the tuning out of it, would be 27 minutes. Not really, but she's tuning.
Yeah.
Another thing that you miss behind the scenes is especially if you're really, really trying to just a perfect tune, man, before and after every single take, tuning. Lots of it.
Yeah, it's a thing, but I mean, it's kind of crucial. There's a couple times when I got to where I was actually comping takes that we didn't tune between takes.
And you could hear it.
Yep. And it was like, ooh, nope, that's not going to jive well with everything else.
Yep.
But
still
got good takes. But yeah, I mean, it's something else to think about, and ear candy makes a huge difference, man. That uke. And I remember us all reacting that way when the whole thing at the end of the session, and we're listening back the next day, because I think David and I crashed there because it was like 2 or 3 in the morning. And we're
was a
listening
long
back
day.
and going, why does the random ukulele make the song?
Why is this so good? And it was a random ear candy. I want to clarify, because the main question is, what's it like to be in a studio for the first time, right? And I want to I hope this analogy works, but the way I thought about it, and the way that I feel like a lot of people think about it prior or now, whatever, is that it's like a pieces of a puzzle coming together. A lot of things that have a final product, whether it's music or whatever, people think about it, okay, well, all these pieces of a puzzle have to come together. However, after seeing it, I wouldn't compare it to that at all.
Okay.
It's not like pieces of a puzzle coming together, because pieces of a puzzle, right? You have a box, you open it up, you have 1,000 pieces, you lay them out, and they start coming together. So with that being said, I'm a piece of the puzzle, you're a piece of the puzzle, David, everyone's piece of the puzzle. It's not like that. At least it wasn't for me, and now that I see it, it's more like a machine being built. And there's steps. There's not steps that are laid out. I'm not talking about taking the creativity out, but it's like more like a machine being built. Step 1, drums. Step 2, the bass line guitar or whatever, or bass guitar. And then, and then you have lead, and then you have vocals, and then you have ear candy, whatever. And it's not, and you jump around in the tracking. I get that, it's like, okay, we're going all the way back to, 27 seconds, and we're going to add this, we're going to do that. It's kind of, but I don't know why that's just stuck in my head of how much it's not like the pieces of a puzzle coming together. I don't like that analogy anymore. It's more like a machine being built, and it's layering, right? It's, step 1, step 2, step 3. Not to say that every engineer and artist and production company and recording studio does it differently. That's fine. Ford builds their engines in a different way than Chevrolet and whoever. That's fine. That's not what I'm saying necessarily. But yeah, it's controlled chaos. And I believe we actually, during the session, mentioned that at some point. It's like controlled chaos. It's very tight and concise and controlled, and you're going step 1, 2, 3, and there's a click track, and there's all these things, but it's, from a creative standpoint, it's so chaotic. And I just, that's the best way I could describe it. It's just not what you think it is. And it's really, really cool to see it and hear it and be there, and, because everyone here, I guess my ears in the room with you, David, it's, I mean, my ears are just the consumer ears, right? Because I have the least, David and his buddy went to college for this stuff. So they went to, where was it? Wake, or where did they go?
I don't remember. I know they went to music school.
MCU? Something, I don't know. But yeah, they went to music school. You went to music school. Everybody went to music school. Meanwhile, Darby's stuck in the oil field trying to make a living. Not in the oil field anymore, by the way. Ugh. Not even going to go there. But anyways, thank goodness. Rest in peace, oil field. I'm out of it. But yeah, so you guys are, y'all are hearing things completely different. I'm just over in the background, and then you find, y'all are looking over to me like, hey, Darbs, how's this sound? And y'all think y'all got it. And I'm like, ah. And that there again, that's when people think of music, right? They think of the sensory part. It's audio, right? It's audio. You pick it up with your ears, you listen to it, and that's it. And you either like it or you don't. And something that you are really big into, and you explained to me, it's not just it's not just a thing that you hear. And I mean, there's so much more into it, like the emotion you feel when you hear it, the feeling it gives you, kind of like watching a movie. There, when you're listening to a song for the first time, you talk about like things you expect, right? So the listener, the consumer like me, you expect this to happen, and there again, this is where you're non-robotic because you're an artist as well. It's like, hey, why not, instead of give the listener what they're expecting, why don't we do this and change it up a little bit? And there's parts of that song, case in point, the ukulele, that you're listening to it and you hear it and it gives you that tingle, you know, and it gives you a feeling. And yeah, there's so much more to music than just listening to it and, you know, jamming out, you know, I like this or I don't. It's catchy. And there's more intellectual just oomph behind it. You know, the way it makes you feel and think, and it does make you think, especially after having been behind the scenes. It's like, you know, and then you start you listen to songs and you start thinking about what it was like when they recorded that song and what they were thinking, and oh man, I bet this was an aha moment, or it just makes you wonder and just hear music so differently than before.
Right. And, you know, it's one of the things with Audio Mutt that, you know, and when we were talking to David, and I'm going, yes, I'm a metal artist. I write rock and metal, but I don't like being limited by genre. To me, that it's, you know, my wife has a saying where people like try to categorize her and she's like, no boxes, I break the box. And I feel the same way. And like with Audio Mutt and the artists that we work with, I don't care about genre. I really don't. I care about content. Like if this song, if your music is trying to say something, if it means something to you, I want to help you get it down. Like, that's just how I feel about it. I care about the content. I care about it saying something. I care about it meaning something. To me, that's real music. It's not about, you know, whether or not you use a trap beat. It's not about whether or not you use an acoustic guitar. It's not about whether or not you use real drums or acoustic drums or MIDI drums or, you know, any of that stuff. It's like, is it real? Like, does it mean something? Is it saying something to you, to others? What are you trying to tell the world? That's what makes real music. And like, and that's why I'm so excited to be working with Dave and hopefully helping him get some more tracks out, because him and Jake are real musicians. They're real artists. They have real things that they're trying to say that mean something to them, and that is one of the coolest things to be a part of. I'm super stoked.
I'm hoping we'll have to talk to Dave, but I'm hoping he'll let us. I want people that see this video actually get to hear the song that we're talking about recording in conjunction. That just makes it that much better. But we'll have to talk to Dave about that. But no, that is really neat to be a part of that. It's like having the most intimate conversation that you've ever had in your life with somebody. Right? It's more than just a conversation. And the song that David wrote is so deeply important to him, and it's about such a pivotal point in his life, which there again I won't go into. But watching him create, or watching him create it, and to, you know, to say it where people can hear it and create this thing, you know, it's work of art. But being part of that is just so cool. And then, you know, there again, behind the scenes, and it would take an 8-hour episode to describe what happened on that day of recording, because it's just not what you think. Yeah, it's not what it's the first, and it's not like this weird loud thing going on, and you know, yeah,
at a loss for words.
I am. I mean, there again, you know, you see it in movies and stuff, you know, like Bohemian Rhapsody. You see the studio cuts and stuff, and it's not there. Like you said, some people do it certain ways. That's fine. Nobody will ever recapture that experience, and except the ones that were in the room. And that's what made, you know, I think back to my favorite songs and my favorite artists, especially, man, you go old timey stuff, man. You start thinking about some of the stuff that was, recorded back in the 30s and 40s and 50s, and it just, what, speaking of Pink Floyd, you think back, what it would be like to be like a fly on the wall in that room while that happened. And I think that's the coolest thing to me, because I was there. I was in the room. It was in my house. You sit there and listen to it, and 10 years from now, and it's more than just a memory or a photo, or it's more than just the end result. It was a collaboration of some dudes that just did something really cool for it's 12 hours. And yeah, I wish we had video recorded the whole 12 hours of it, so we could document how cool it was. We would make a documentary on recording a song. Put that on the to-do list, man.
Maybe next time. Yeah. And it's like, a lot of what you're talking about is one of the cool things about taking on the producer role in a tune. Like, because sometimes artists really do just need us to be engineers, and that's fine. Like, I have no problem being the guy who knows how to put up a microphone. It actually takes a lot of work off my shoulder. So I don't just have one. But when an artist does ask us to step into the role of producer, like Dave did, it's a weird role. And like, I remember when I first started, I keep going back to audio school. Just, I have so many vivid memories of that.
Yeah, you spent a third of your life there.
Well, only 2 years was audio school.
Oh, wow.
But like, there was, when going into Audio 101, and there being this misconception with a lot of students about what producing was. Like, I remember this dude was sitting in front of me, and he leans back, and I don't know, I guess he was trying to show off or something. I don't know. I'm not good at reading people. But he was just like, man, I don't even know why I need to take 101, because, like, I'm already a producer. And I'm going, really? That's awesome, man. Who have you produced? And he goes, nah, man, I make beats. And
no.
And yeah, and I'm not trying to talk bad about the dude, but it's like, because he wasn't alone. Like, there's a few kids who entered audio school with that understanding of what a producer is, but that's not really the producer role at all. It's so much more important than that. Your producer is the guy who gets to know these artists at a real level and learns how to coax the best out of them. And a lot of times,
I like that explanation.
Yeah, because a lot of times they're kind of business-wise, they are the middleman between the record label and the artist. The record label has hired them to make sure that the record label gets a good and marketable product. And the artist is accepting that because the producer knows what's going to be sellable commercially and can help make sure that the end product is good because the artist wants to sound good. But then you get down at a more granular level, and like with the Audio Mutt situation, like, it was just us working with Dave, right? There's no record label involvement. It is an independent artist. That's cool because, like, our job wasn't to write a part for him. It was to guide and influence and offer feedback and try and help David and Jake pull out that greatness that was already in them, that they had already written into the bones of the song, and just help them to do this as best as they could. And that kind of supporting role is often, it's either you either see it kind of overlooked or you see it kind of overemphasized, right? Like, people are like, either the producer is this would be nothing without the producer, or it's like, well, what's the producer even there for? They're not the artist.
I feel like the producer would be the only one saying that this wouldn't be there without the producer.
Maybe.
Well, no, and I agree, and there again, which this is another topic for another show, but talking about, the client relations, but becoming so comfortable with the producer, and clearly that happened with that. I mean, really, the four of us were meeting for the first time as a group, the four of us together for the first time that day. And clearly, 6 hours in is when the best stuff started coming out. Right. And that's part of it too. It's no matter how well rehearsed it is. I mean, it can be perfectly rehearsed and everything. And then they go in and they lay down a song and, say they take an hour or two, and it's probably great. I'm sure some of the greatest songs of all time were done that way. But I feel like our experience, just having the length of time we spent together, changed the song for the better, because we became more comfortable with each other. The ideas and the creativity started flowing, and I think the end result ended up completely different than, there again, what any of us thought it was going to. And it would have, if we had just said, okay, or if we had rushed it, right? If we had said, hey, none of us, we all have like a 4-hour window, it would have been okay, but it wouldn't have been great.
Yep.
And that's with any piece of art, really, but
it really is. So there's one more thing that I really kind of want to get your thoughts on. So when we did this was not here at my North Texas location. This was at your outside of Austin, your East Texas location. And we recorded this with my mobile rig. Now, that's probably pretty different from what you would know or think to expect from a recording session.
Yeah, times change, and I think, and even without the times changing, I think that Audio Mutt, having a studio like Audio Mutt, not just having the capacity of having producers, and it's like the logo says, man, it's just making music or jamming with friends or whatever the case, right? And doing it on a budget, but still having the same end result. I think it opens up for artists, there again, like David and Jake, that, they don't have $10,000 or $20,000 to drop on a recording session. They've got a few bucks in their pocket and they've got something to say, and they're able to do it with a studio like Audio Mutt. And I was able to be there for the first real recording session we had, and I hope I will be there for the 10,000th recording, session. Just have a little more gray in my beard at that time, but it's going to be a fun journey, and I'm glad to have been here for the start of it.
Nice. Well, glad to have you along for the ride, brother. So I think that's probably as good a place to wrap up as we will find. Otherwise, you and I, we can just keep chatting forever. But thanks for anyone who tuned in. Thank you for stopping by. There will be links in the description to different videos we referenced throughout this podcast. If you're viewing this or listening to this on somewhere other than YouTube, visit our YouTube channel, and you can find the links in the description of the video there. And there will be links to the Audio Mutt website, as well as our merch store, and lots of other things. We've got more episodes to come. We're going to keep this rocking and rolling and just having conversations. So, Darbs, thanks for jumping on with me, and we're just going to keep doing this, and we will let the audience know when we've got more guests. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
Peace, love, and chicken grease, man.
Rock and roll. All right. Well, thanks again. Appreciate you all very much. You are awesome, and have a good one.
I am afraid of the habits that I use. but I'll take my last breath alone. And I am afraid of the skeletons my closet holds. And I am afraid tomorrow's a tag on the toe. Now so long to walk a knee. If I wanna be remembered, I'm asleep. Tried to walk the line, oh, I fucked up every time. Not so long to walk a knee. Anything that'll pour as I'm burning my old coffin nails. Oh, I sit and I stare at an unopened book on the shelf. You know it follows me to every home to remind me that I'm getting old. It just collects dust. Now I'm blowing smoke rings alone. Now so long to walk a knee. If I wanna be remembered, I must leave. Tried to make you mine, oh, I'll burn that bridge in time. So long to walk a knee. So long to walk a knee. If I wanna be remembered, I must leave. Tried to walk the line, oh, I fucked up every time. So long to walk a knee.